Welcome, one and all, throughout time and space, for this new episode of Weebs on the Weekend, the podcast where we break down the anime news highlights of the week and give a retrospective look on an anime that premiered 10 years ago. Today's episode will cover our summer 2022 top 5 hopeful list, after which we will give our thoughts on whether to resurrect or rebury the 2012 anime franchise Kokoro Connect. My name is Sam Martinez. I'm a part-time weeb, full-time automail mechanic. With me, as always, is my co-host Jay Johnson, full-time weeb. Not full-time weeb. Part-time weeb, full-time English language sensei. If we can always be a full-time weeb.
I wish I was a full-time weeb.
No, Jay. I do believe that it is time to talk a little bit about our anime series, which is Kokoro Connect. And Jay, this was your pick. So why did you choose this anime? And can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, of course, because this is one of those animes that, again, can very much be overlooked, because if you're not really into the slice of life genre and, you know, if you've aged up enough, you're not really into watching animes about schools. So, this was 2012. We were both in university. Why watch an anime about high school kids? But this is such a staple of the anime community. I just thought, yeah, after 10 years, let's talk about it. Because, again, this is one of those character designs that leak into the community no matter where you are. There's, memes from it. You're like, oh, that's where this meme comes from? Kind of thing. And also why Kokoro Connect is so important is because it basically set the trend. Well, actually, it was part of the Sen trending back in the 2000s that basically got everyone hooked onto the moe slice of life kind of vibe, I guess you'd call it. Because this also came out with, there's 4 big mainstays of that genre that started in the 2000s. It's the K-On!, the Lucky Star, the Tamako market, as well as this being the Kokoro Connect, because they're from the same illustrator. Let me see if not to mess up her name, but it's Shiro Mizakana, and she's basically an illustrator that coded this style of art for moe. So those 4 series spread over 5 years basically turn the industry around, or kind of set the standard for what moe is.
It just seeped into our consciousness, that's our new standard, because she was everywhere. She's like, let me just sprinkle this so that this becomes the new normal.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so weird, when you look retrospectively back on things, just oh, I wonder if this was planned, or, things that vibe with the audience that gains in popularity, and the anime production committees, oh, people like this, put more out, kind of thing. So again, that's why I put my mom's daughter as my ex, because it's not the new version of that, but again, it's a trend that we should be keeping up with. So This is a 2012 anime production by Studio Silver Lynx, and it premiered on July 8th, so we're actually right on the anniversary, the 10th anniversary. That's so cool. Yeah. Look at us being on time. But
it was all planned. It was all part of the plan.
Yeah, there's no coincidences, I remember. So this is a production that happened with Studio Silver Lynx, like I said, because Studio Lynx was the other moe production, I guess, producer studio, alongside A1 Pictures and Kyoto Animation. Those are the kind of 3. So again, it's nice to come back to a cornerstone of the industry and talk about it. Be surprised or disappointed by it, but it's basically following a story of 5 high school students that are basically facing supernatural phenomenons that reveal and test their bonds. It's a very simple premise. And what else about this? It's a romantic comedy in the category of supernatural. It was based off a light novel of 11 volumes that ran from 2010 to 2013. So the 17 episodes in total covers most of the story. It doesn't have a wrap up, so it is a original anime ending that didn't exceed the light novel series. And the Studio Silver Lynx, what we know them from, oh man, they have been working hard for the past couple of years. They did Deep Insanity, which I think we talked about last year, which wasn't impressive to you. They also did World's Finest Assassin last year, as well as Dungeon of the Black Company, as well as My Life as a Villainess. So they've basically been, for the last 4 years, been putting out 4 animes each year. They started back in 2007, but they've only really been kicked up into popularity over the past couple of years. So I'm happy for them, since they have like this heavy hitter in their catalog or their filmography. So that's the premise. That's the background information. Was this your first time watching this, Sam?
Yes, and for those who want to watch this, remember this can be seen on Crunchyroll or High Dive. And I do want to say, like you said, this was my first time seeing it, and that moe aesthetic, I definitely do see that here. And looking back at some of the other works by Link, so like Bofuri, the one where like I poured all my points in defense, you definitely see the moe influence in that show from Kokoro Connect. So we are definitely feeling the waves of the moe. And looking at it, it reminded me of the anime Kisniver. Are you familiar with that or no?
Yeah, it was a Studio Trigger recently, I think before the movie premiere.
So it's another show where a little bit like Sense 8 as well, where they basically take a group of people and they connect them in a very supernatural way, and their relationships are being tested. And it's making me think about what we were saying earlier, how like everything is reverting to a sort of a porn like storyline, because like the if you just go by like the premise of the first episode, it'll make you raise your eyebrows like, where is this going to go? Because essentially we have the kids switch bodies. And as I said, with anime, it's very notorious for going the dirty, naughty route in that regard. And with this series, they try to take a more mature and philosophical approach in regards to it. And it's fairly interesting in that way. As I said, like it's sort of combining the supernatural ties, like that's done in Kisniver or in Sense 8. And it's also having that school life influence. So, for instance, that other anime, Remarkable, I'm trying to remember the full title, but it's like Remarkable Things Happen, or Extraordinary Battles Take Place commonly, where it's like basically these kids, they wake up with supernatural powers and they have a club dedicated to playing around with those supernatural powers in that regard. And a lot of the time in Kokoro Connect, we see these characters in their club room trying to figure out what to do. And it's very relaxing in that regard. But Jay, I just found it funny that like you being a teacher, it's like the first anime that we watch coming back has to do with school life. So it's like, do you really live in the school, or is that just a rumor that the kids give out to each other?
Right. Well, since we're a private institution and we have a dorm system, and there are teachers that live in the dorm as well, so it's like, yeah, you do live, you do live at the school. And it's funny because I forget the comedian, but I believe he's a YouTube comedian, but he made a sketch of like a kid seeing their teacher out in like shopping, and they think like they just live at the school. It's really funny to me. But yeah, it is a firm school anime. So again, why I kind of steered away from it, because it's like we get tired of it. It's like, yeah, every school is the same. The student council president is all powerful. There's shenanigans going on. But like you said, this is surprisingly mature for. It's not even a seinen. It's a. Actually, I don't even know what the classification would be, but it's definitely mature for what you would expect the subject matter to tackle. Because yeah, all 3 episodes, as we're doing the 3 episode test, is stuck on the same premise, and it's just using it to flesh out their interpersonal relationships, their insecurities, their hangups, their flaws, their strengths. And I was like, I don't know if I'll buy this, because if they're not in their original body and you're learning something about them, are you actually going to keep track of who's actually you're learning about from? And I was like, yeah, it kind of gets mixed up a little bit, but it's
Yeah.
not too serious. Everyone does have like unique problems to them. So when they do transfer back to their bodies, their personality ticks or their physical ticks do translate over. So you're like, oh yeah, so they were in that body at that one time, but now they're back in their original body. So it's not as mixed up as you would think it would be, like a Freaky Friday, but every episode or every few minutes, which I was worried about. But yeah, for the 3 episode test, it doesn't really pass because there it doesn't I watched past the 3 episodes, so it does get the whole switching body thing does kind of continue for a little some more episodes. But how the second episode sets up, you do get an answer to why it's happening, because there's some kind of god in this world, or deity or spiritual being called Heartseed, and given the name, it's like probably a love god or a love trickster, and he's the one responsible who also takes over the teacher's body to say, like, oh yeah, I'm doing this for a specific reason. And basically it's to flush out all the secrets that they're hiding from each other. So it rides a very specific line between dealing with men and women and their interpersonal relationships, being it platonic,
Mm.
non-platonic, the things that they don't want to talk about, like secret feelings as adolescents that they're trying to hide from each other. Same thing. Like one of the most famous memes from Kokoro Connect is the when the main girl, who is, what is her name? Is it Inaba? Inaba?
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
Inaba.
Inaba.
But
Inaba. Yeah, yeah. Main girl, main best girl. Inaba. She basically like leans in close to Taichi and says something very inappropriate, but it's very funny. But it's a screenshot of her saying, "Oh, I've masturbated to you too." And I was like, I've always thought that was like a fan dub, but no, it's in the real anime. So, and that,
wait, was that past episode 3?
oh, I'm sorry,
Or
yes, yeah, that is past episode 3.
okay.
But that is just pointing out something of how mature it is, because
Yeah.
it's not vulgar, like it's not,
Hmm.
because he says that earlier, because one of the episodes is like they have to be truthful to each other. So Taichi mentions that to her earlier, so she just returns the favor, mentioning the same thing. And I'm just using that as a out of 3 episode example, because they're dealing with a lot of things that high school kids deal with. Like Yui, who's another girl in the group, she has to deal with androphobia. That's revealed in the 3rd episode, that she's
Hmm.
afraid of men because of a sexual assault that she had in middle school. Well, sorry, she was sexually assaulted in middle school, so she has a fear of men, and that gets flushed out because she switches into a man's body, and that triggers her in a lot of very real, real world kind of ways that people can relate to. So just saying, like, this came out of nowhere. This just slapped me across the face of how not dark but how real this got out of nowhere, because you get this cute moe aesthetic, you get this very clean and crisp animation done by the studio, you get like good musicality behind certain scenes, but then you get hit with the characters. They're like, we're not just some dumb kids that you see in every slice of life that's like, yeah, whoop de doop de doop, that you would expect from the Disney Channel. You get these real, earnest characters. So I thought the characters were the strongest. But anything, whether you like what I said, Sam? Because I can go about this for a long time. But yeah.
No. Like there are definitely times when the characters are strong. So, like for instance, there was a time when Nagase, the chick that has the ponytail on her side, where she is in Aoki's body, and she makes that profound statement about, if we hop between each other's bodies so many times, how much longer before we're no longer ourselves, like that sort of thing, where it's like if you hop between somebody's body, so or a group of people's bodies so many times, it's like how long do you hold on to your sense of self, that sort of thing. That was very profound of hers. But then when you said that we're not always like dumb kids, it's like, yeah, but you would think that like after the third time, or at least after having Heartsteed show up, that the kids would sort of make a keyword or a phrase with each other to let the other people that are around them know, it's like, hey, I just body switched with so and so, right? I'm actually so and so. But like we don't really get that sense of organization. I mean, we get them immediately calling the other person that they switched bodies with, but we've seen instances where they're in school and they switch bodies, and but at least they're around like one other person, right? That's in that main group that knows. So you can at least make an easy phrase or something to let that other core group person knows, like, hey, I'm so and so right now. And even when Heartseed showed up, he gave me a lot of Ryuk vibes, in the sense that he was saying that like he was lazy, or like that he wasn't as motivated as a teacher that he was embodying. And in a sense, he was like, I'm just sort of bored right now, and you guys seem interesting, so I'm going to be with you until I think that I'm done and I want to go on to the next group of people. Essentially like having that route. And although that's not, I mean, that's interesting, but I would say like it's also not satisfying, because in the beginning you have this sort of mystery aspect of these kids trying to figure out what's going on. It's like, is the school built on Indian burial grounds or something else like that? But like now that they have this outside factor just validating what's going on, and that he's the cause of it, there's nothing that they can do. I guess like that sense of helplessness adds to it. It's a different way that you have to take it. It's very weird. I would.
Yeah. And then add to that is that what you said about probably why they didn't actually do the code word thing, because again, that's something reasonable that we can definitely say as a outside viewer, but in the world they actually do kind of explain it, because one of them pretends not to have switched or have to have switched, and then they're pretending to be the other person. So if you're saying that they need secret codes for each other to know who's in whose body, it's like that's already part of the fun, or the Loki trickster kind of part of it. It's like, is his point to break apart the group? And the same thing with the individuality part. It feels very much like Ghost in the Shell, or I'm trying to think of that Netflix things with Netflix show about sleeves that I really like.
Altered Carbon.
Yeah, Altered Carbon. Yes, thank you. It's like, yeah, that if you switch into a body and you lose your genitalia and then you switch back, it's like, yeah, you get the physical sensations, like they stay left over, because like no matter how you present the soul, you're getting a physical bodily experience. And I think that's part of the fun of it, and that they kind of explore a little bit, like they do go a little bit more philosophical with it. But I think that's why they're like meandering about dealing with it as a problem.
And when you had mentioned the genitalia, right? So them being a mixed group of boys and girls, like at first, like they're very sensitive, and then like they start making ground rules. It's like, oh, you can't go to the bathroom when you switch bodies with the other sex or something else like that. As I said, like they make a big hubbub about that, but then we see Taichi switch bodies with Yuri, the person who has androphobia, and this is when it starts coming to a head, where we begin to learn that she has androphobia. And it's in the middle of the night. Yuri's in her pajamas. She's in bed. And Taichi's watching TV with his little sister. They switch bodies. And then they call. And then they agree to meet up. And we see Yuri fully dressed, right? And that's, implying that Taichi had dressed her. So from up to this point, like the girls were making a big fuss to not do anything to the boys, right? I mean, I can understand like if Tai came as Yuri, like dressed in like a jacket or like some sweatpants or something else like that, right? Just putting clothes on top of the PJs. But no, he's out there in a full blown dress, meaning he undressed Yuri and put new clothes on. I guess I'm probably just nitpicking, but it's just like up until that point, it's like the girls have been insistent on the guys not doing anything to the girls. And yet we see this wardrobe change and it's not addressed and it's not brought up. I guess because the androphobia is the main issue, but still, it seems like there's something a little bit off. And even with the androphobia, because this chick, she's also in martial arts, and the way that Tai Chi helps her overcome androphobia is basically showing her how to nutshot guys. But and although it was good to have her experience that. I wish that in the show that they did more of that, right? Where like they get to experience something that the other sex experiences that they wouldn't otherwise experience. So like say for instance, one of the guys would experience like a period or something else like that to gain that level of empathy, of understanding. But the fact that she didn't know how to do nut shots, even though she went to training for karate and she went to tournaments. I mean, I guess the only way that she would not know about it is if she went to like a gender specific school. But in karate or in tournaments, like you train with men and women. I mean, I was in martial arts too. Like it was a mixed group. I mean, you do spar off with somebody that's your similar build or your similar weight, but like if there aren't enough girls around, a girl had to be paired up with a guy. So that didn't make any sense. I mean, it was a good, strong, impactful moment for her. Again, like I said, like I really liked her being able to uh, have more empathy towards guys now. But the fact that she didn't know about that, even despite that she had martial arts training, that just seemed weird and wrong.
As an MMA fighter, do they teach you to nutshot people as you're doing competitive martial arts?
Well, no, but like it's definitely like one of the things that you're told not to do. So like even like in memory, I mean, you wear a cup, but you know there are rules like you're just like, oh, you're not supposed to hit below the belt, or you're not supposed to headbutt people. You know, like there are certain areas you're not supposed to hit to consider it fair. Because you know if you do nutshot somebody, I mean, like no matter what, like they're going to go down. It's not like you hit somebody in the stomach and they can tough it out, right? You hit somebody in the nuts, they are going down no matter what. And her being in martial arts, that's something that she would learn. Like I said, it's just weird that she didn't know that, and it's just a bit mind boggling to me. I guess if anything else, maybe a complaint or maybe a bit of a statement, and then we can go on to our final thoughts and uh, verdicts on Resurrect or Rebury. I would say like Inaba. Oh my goodness, the main chick that you had mentioned earlier, the one who's sort of stoic and sort of acts like the leader of the group, even though she's technically not the leader of the group. It's weird. It's like they try to put her on a pedestal or try to make her seem like everybody likes her, but with what she does, she is very, very unlikable. I mean, the way that she talks, she's very brusque. She's definitely tries to put people at arm's length, and when she switches bodies, as I mentioned earlier, she's very, very spiteful. I mean, we see these guys like when they swap bodies as little girls, you know, they record themselves doing love confessions, right? But like they saved it on their phone, and I'm assuming they don't have any other friends. It's just like that group of five, so it's not like they're going to send that to anybody else. When she comes in and she's body swapped as one of the other guys, and you know they found out that that the recordings are on their phone, she threatens to run around the school naked to emotionally scar the other guy. And there are also times when she would hit a male for making a sexual innuendo, but she wouldn't hit a woman for making a similar sexual innuendo. It was very, very weird. Like what we said earlier, or said on other anime episodes, how there's sort of a skewed perspective on humor in regards to men. How they're usually like the butt or the subject of physical humor or jokes in regards to mixed company. I mean, hell, we even have Inaba when she is one of the male guys, basically acts like he professed his love uh about a character to somebody else, right? It's like, oh, I'm dating this person, and it was like it's like, why would you do that? It's just she's just very very spiteful, and but I don't know. There's something that makes me that there's something appealing about her. Excuse me, despite the fact that she does actions that put bad taste in your mouth. So that's me and my soapbox, and I'll jump down from that. I don't know if you have any thoughts on what I've said, or if we want to go on to the verdict.
There is a weird comparison I want to make to. There's a weird cheesy. I don't know if what the there's a name for this production company that does all these cheesy horror movies, but Truth or Dare. I think it came out a few years ago. It is
Yes, yes, yes.
basically a horror film around the idea that a close group of friends rather die than reveal their secrets.
Hmm.
And I very much like that premise because it's like, yeah, who are your true friends? Who are the true personality types? Or who has like psychotic or sociopathic tendencies? And like, you don't really know because something that goes overlooked in kind of the first three episodes is that Lori, one of the, what does she look like? Lori is the one that has those side bangs with
Yeah, yeah.
things.
Yeah, Nagase. Yeah, the one with the side ponytail.
Yeah. And like
Mhm.
her, she feels like the most manipulative, even though like Inabe kind of has her own share in that kind of
Hmm.
charismatic kind of manipulation. So it's like you get the idea that they're not all likable. Like Taichi is maybe the only only quote unquote good person in the group. And I
I
kind of
think it's
like
because
that.
he's the most neutral, like you said.
Yeah, neutral. Yeah,
Mhm.
so neutrality looks good when you compare it to Malice. So, yeah, so last season's Tamagotchi game, Tamagotchi, the friend
Yeah,
game that we
Tomodachi.
talked, yeah,
Tomodachi.
Tamagotchi,
Hmm.
yeah, game that we talked about kind of plays into that as well. It's like you get placed in a situation where you get to one get power over people, you get to manipulate them, you get to explore things that you wouldn't naturally. So, I think if anything, it's like they didn't push the premise. The premise isn't written as strongly as it would have allowed. Like all the things that you said would have like definitely flushed out their characters a little bit more to have them experience what it actually meant to switch into another person's body versus just letting their personalities run wild without consequence. And the only
Hmm.
consequence is that you lose your friend group. But if that's your only friend group, then it's like you're weighing out the cost versus the benefit of doing those things. Like, are you
Yeah.
really testing your friendships? And I think that's what Heart Heartseed reveal in the second episode really emphasizes is that yes, you're being toyed with. So what can you make out of that situation versus it being a mystery? So for those reasons, and I talked about, I haven't really seen this before. Maybe I haven't watched enough Slice of Life, but I definitely compare this to like Oh Maidens of a Savage Season, Hia, Horimiya, Onohana, kind of in the vein of like taking this basic school premise and like using it to explore these really three-dimensional, very realistic characters versus like just putting so much emphasis on the fantastical bits of it. But yeah, I'm going to say after three episodes, and since I watched uh, two more episodes after it, is that it's definitely worth a resurrect. But how about you, Sam? Would you resurrect it or keep it buried where it was 10 years ago?
I'm sort of on the fence because very much like what you said earlier, um, in the first episode, when you're just introduced to the characters, I didn't really get a good sense of their personalities. So whenever they said that they switched bodies, it's like, oh, I'm so and so, and along with the Japanese names, it was hard for me to track a little bit. So like, okay, wait a minute, who's who? It's like, how do I know that who's who? Whereas in One Piece, they had a sort of like a body swap type thing too with Trafalgar Law's powers. But with them, like, you had time to get to know the characters, and even in those episodes, they make little cards that they wear on their heads so that you know who's who in which body, which was kind of funny then. And I guess like in this, I guess one thing that they could have done at least like in episode one is done like a maybe like a transparent shadow, or have like their ghost outside of the body, so you can have like a visual representation. It's like, oh, this is this person right now, so a better with the links, but you get a good feel like as it keeps going. And it's interesting, the topics that they discuss, and even what one of the things, even when the group learns that they are being manipulated, one thing that Inaba mentions is that they don't know how long it will last. They don't know if somebody will break, right? So she had mentioned that she thought that Nagase would, the one with the side ponytail, that she would lose her sense of self first, and that would affect the whole group, uh and indefinitely. And yet, at the end of episode three, there's something that happens to Inaba where it seems like she's the one that's affected first, not Nagase. So there's that keeps you along. So I guess if you're really tied to the characters, you can really keep going forward. But as we mentioned earlier, like the 3 episodes, it's not that strong. But I like the premise too, or at least like them sitting down and thinking about these characters and having them talk to each other. But I don't know. I feel like they've done that better in Keys Kniver and in possibly Sense 8 as well. I haven't I haven't finished Keys Kniver, and I haven't seen more than one episode of Sense 8, so I can't really say that. But I feel like they've done it better, but I'm not sure if they're around just because of Kokoro Connect or if they were individuals. So, like I said, I'm just on the fence. I guess if I have to question it, then I would have to say Reberry. Um, just to make things easier, because if I was on the fence about this, then I would say Resurrect. But since I'm questioning it, I'll just go ahead and I would say Reberry.
All right, cool. So got a resurrect from me, a reburied from you. So nice splits. Have we had a split in a while? I don't know. We're into a new
It's
season,
been
so
some
let's.
time, yeah.
Yeah. Because yeah, so we need to start keep track of that. We should keep a record because it's really interesting. Well, we'll talk about this probably with. I don't know how I feel about this making my top 10 list, but it's really a strong contender for me right now. So we'll talk about that in a couple of months. But yeah, we close out the year with
Yes.
a top 10 list. So yeah, so that's it for the 10-year review. Nice.
Yes, very, very good. As we said, once again, there was a resurrect from us, from Jay, and a weak Reberry from myself. And for our next episode, join us as we will witness a battle that is supposed to be on par of Ragnarok proportions as we cover the anime known as Campion. Now, Jay, what have you got for us today?
All right, so closing out with some Freaky Friday quotes because I was thinking about doing something from the movie Freaky Friday, which has Jamie Lee Curtis and who's the girl that
Oh, Lindsay Lohan.
Lizzie Lohan, but I'm going to read something from Freaky Friday by Little Dicky instead because that's funnier.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's Freaky Friday. I'm in Chris Brown's body. I drive his Ferrari and I'm light skin black. Ring ring. I woke up. I'm Little Dicky. That shit is real weak.